Stakeholder satisfaction strategies for winning internally with IT. My name is Ashley Limbers, and I'll be your moderator. I'm the marketing coordinator here at Total Computer Solutions, and I'm excited to be hosting this session today. Total Computer Solutions is a full-service provider of IT and support services, including network security, cloud computing, network administration, managed backup services, and Central North Carolina. I'm pleased to introduce today's speaker, Matt McNees. Matt has began his career in business in 2013. Since then, he has worked in several IT sectors. He joined the TCS team in order to apply his consulting skills to the development and maintenance of business relationships that will help strengthen our economic community. Before I hand the mic over to Matt, I have a few housekeeping items to cover about this presentation and the Zoom platform. First, today's webinar will be available on demand after the live session and will be emailed to you afterwards. Next, we would love to hear from you during today's webinar. If you have a question for our speaker, please feel free to type them into the question box in your Zoom control panel. We'll be answering questions at the end of the session. If we don't get to your question during today's webinar, we'll be sure to follow up with you afterwards. And last, we'd like to encourage you to give us feedback on today's webinar. You will see a link in your browser when the webinar ends. So without further ado, I'd like to kick things off by welcoming our business consultant, Matt McNees. Matt, over to you.
Thank you so much, Ashley, for that introduction, and thank you for moderating today. Hey, everyone, I'm excited to do this presentation today. Thank you for attending. I'm excited to do this because I get excited about solving business problems. And today, the business problem we're going to talk about solving is stakeholder satisfaction. Bringing IT into your company in ways that allow you to really win with those who are your stakeholders. Every day, we find ourselves in business discussions where not only do we have to make important IT decisions about services and products, but make decisions about how those services and products can best satisfy our own internal team, our own companies, our own stakeholders. So today's webinar was created with the IT decision maker in mind. The person that has to make those decisions, not just short-term, but hopefully medium and hopefully long-term decisions and plans for your particular company or entity. So as I said, all the time, we go into companies who need help with IT, and having a plan for how the IT strategy can work for everyone in your company is a key. We work with decision makers, and I talk to decision makers all the time who must satisfy internal stakeholders with a successful IT partnership strategy, who must not only deliver on, yes, products, services to support, say, their cybersecurity or their network health, but must do so in such a way where that partnership is a success internally. So this presentation is designed to help with the challenge of finding the right IT partner and plan while satisfying the internal company stakeholders and internal company folks in that very process. So let's go and start talking about how we're going to satisfy our stakeholders with strategies for winning internally with IT. Today, we're going to have 4 key points. Now, each one of these key points in the overview slide here is going to come with a winning strategy. So, if you're not taking notes throughout this or just kind of soaking it up, one of the things that we're excited to share with you are the keys for each individual challenge. So each one of these accommodating the different behaviors and needs of your stakeholders, securing your business, mastering the balance between options and simplicity, and understanding the evolution of technology. Each one of these key points is going to have its own winning strategy attached with it. So let's think about not just these as problems, but problems that are going to have solutions and strategies you can take to your company, and you'll be leaving today's webinar with those 4 key solutions, strategies for winning in each one of these areas. First of all, before we begin though, this term stakeholder can, I think, be confusing, but really by stakeholder, we mean anyone that contributes or benefits from the success of your company. So we put up some simple definitions here, and really we mean a member of a group without whose support the organization would cease to exist. Now that's a key and a primary stakeholder there. Clearly, many people within your company, you need their support or else you could not do business day to day as you do. Also think about a stakeholder as a person, group, or organization that has interest or concern in your organization or company. So we'll think very broadly about this. Governments, employees, customers, suppliers, creditors, the community, trade unions, owners, investors, and more all can comprise your stakeholder base. We will talk about primary versus secondary, but think very broadly about stakeholders. As you do, please remember the key that a stakeholder is a person. A stakeholder is comprised of people who have person or human needs. Listing our stakeholders, we can begin to think first about primary stakeholders probably. So those of you who are in charge of making the IT decisions, the IT partnership decisions for your company, probably the first thing when we talk about stakeholders that pops in your mind are primary stakeholders. Those who are doing business within your company day to day. Your president, CEO, your director of operations, your sales manager, your administrative team, your marketing team. Those primary stakeholders are right there and have primary contributions on a day-to-day basis where your company could not exist. So we probably think of those first, and I would encourage you to think of your primary stakeholders first. Another way of listing your stakeholders or getting your arms around your stakeholders is stakeholder mapping. You could literally sit down and make a diagram of here's this type of stakeholder within our company. Here's our list of vendors. Here is our community and the way we work with our community. That kind of mapping can really orient you to not just primary stakeholders, but all of the stakeholders around you. And you may be surprised if you do really take the time to map out your stakeholders, how much influence you have as a company or entity. You might also list your stakeholders through silos. Stakeholder silos would be, here's silos and here's what they would need to know. Here's a different silo, our own internal operations team, here's what they would need to know. Here's a different silo, those we do business with as vendors, and here's what they would need to know. We will think broadly about them, but again, I would reiterate, these are all humans who are going to have different needs as we satisfy those what they need to know about our own IT strategy. So you as the decision maker about IT, it's fundamental that you have a broad view and are thinking about all of these different human concerns. I would pose some questions that you might ask yourself as you begin to deal with the challenges of being an IT decision maker for your company. The challenges of dealing with the person who must not just bring in successful IT products and services, but must satisfy your own constituents, your own stakeholders as you do. So you'd want to ask yourself, what message in general do you need to send to each stakeholder? Unfortunately, the message in general is probably not the same for your different stakeholders. What information about IT security do stakeholders need? Different types of information for different levels of stakeholders. And here's where that siloing and mapping can come in handy. Another question, how do they fit into and benefit from your IT security strategy? Some examples, a primary stakeholder, an owner and a president of the company, needs to know the IT security strategy at a high level for sensitive information and compliance in case of a data breach. Now we think about this. This is the type of stakeholder as an owner and a president that's going to be dealing with strategies, long-term goals, really looking at things from a high level. This is the kind of stakeholder where we would want to be aligning with goals and strategies. Let's look at another stakeholder, a primary stakeholder, say, who's in operations and administration's coordination. They may need to know workstation security for inter-office communications in order to maintain the integrity of daily information exchange. What I mean by that is they would need to know something a little bit more specific about daily information. May not need the highest level picture, but may have to know a little bit about, the blocking and tackling of our day-to-day security. But also look outside of your organization at a secondary stakeholder. Think of a vendor or a business development partner that you have. The example we have here is that they need to know that you have two-factor authentication. And that's the reason why folks on the outside, including them, cannot access information. So think about the difference between being communicating to your vendor as a secondary stakeholder, how they are a part of your IT security strategy, and how much that could create a sense of partnership. How much that could bring your vendors to your side of the table, knowing that you have systems in place that even protect their information should you have it. Stakeholders all are going to have needs. And kind of before I move on from the examples there, I just kind of want to reiterate that each of these examples is going to carry its own message. So let's say you're talking to a primary stakeholder who's an owner and president of your company. What kind of security message might they want? What kind of preparedness message might they want? Maybe a message of continual improvement is a way to communicate. Maybe a message about how your IT strategy leads to a long-term ROI is the right message. Maybe just a message that you have a long-term plan. But these high-level security information messages that you have a plan in place. Certainly bring everyone in, all your stakeholders together in order to support your IT strategy internally. So let's talk just for a moment about the needs of all the different stakeholders you're going to meet. And we're not going to go too deep into this. And certainly if you have a psychology degree and can really understand people's needs, you would be exceeding the depth of this presentation here for sure. But just to really emphasize that all of our stakeholders have these human needs, we have a slide here about self-actualization, physiology, and esteem. But, let's keep this simple here. Within our company, everyone needs a certain sense of self-actualization to where there's growth in their career and company, et cetera, to where their inputs are taken seriously. And IT partnership and IT strategies is no different from that. So knowing that you bringing in an IT strategy for your company, understand that there are those that have to see that strategy as part of their growth, for their career, for their day-to-day growth is very important. Certainly, the physiological and the basic needs should be something you can express that, hey, our IT strategy supports our bottom line. It's here to keep us safe. It's here to keep the company growing. It's here to keep the company profitable. So I'd highly recommend that any IT strategy and plan, if you're the IT decision maker, you are able to articulate how it is meeting the basic bottom line need of your company. It's supporting our goal to grow, to get a return on an investment. Certainly, you would want an IT strategy to support everyone's esteem needs, that there is support and empathy, particularly for security. So our IT strategy itself is something that it supports the individual needs of all of our stakeholders. How can you explain your IT strategy or business plan in such a way to meet these stakeholder needs? That is some of the difficult but rewarding and creative work of bringing in IT strategy and being the IT decision maker. As you're seeing, it's not just about the products and services, it's about explaining why and how these products and services help all of us, even as different as stakeholders as we are. So, how do we win with challenge number one, which is accommodating different stakeholder types and needs? It's by recognizing and communicating. Communication is going to be a key to several of our challenges. So number one challenge, accommodating different stakeholder types and needs. Solution, we win by recognizing and communicating. Second challenge, for those of you tasked with IT decision-making, you absolutely have to consider security. You can't bring an IT plan. You can't find an IT partner. You can't have an IT plan and not be taking security seriously. So the security is the process you have in place, you have agreed upon based upon your level of security need. Now, I would highly recommend that any of you who are in charge of the IT decision-making for your company, that you make this particular challenge part of a broader conversation within your company, because you must agree on what level of security you need. You must, and this is going to bring up budgetary issues, but there are different types of agreement. There's overt agreement where you sit down and you talk and you agree. It's written, it's discussed. There's software perhaps in place that you're already using. It's signed because you have a partnership. It's an overt agreement. Now, some cultures have a more implied agreement, things you kind of just know about security, things you kind of joke about, maybe even perhaps things you kind of talk about. Probably it's a combination of the two, but you will need overt agreements in place, overt discussions, so that you can identify the level of security that you need for your company. Identifying that level of security that is needed is a level that you will not go below as you bring your winning IT strategy internally, because to go below it would be to put your company at an undue risk. So you as the IT decision maker, you are in charge of reaching the consensus and having the necessary discussion to find that security need. Now, this may be a point of consultation. Certainly something that a managed service provider would do would be discuss your security plan with you. And one of the first things we would want to discuss with you is, have you agreed upon your level of security need? Sometimes that can be a more complicated discussion, but it certainly will involve your IT budget and where you think you can afford to have a certain amount of risk with your data. All industries and all companies are different. As you work on the security challenge of bringing IT internally and winning bringing IT internally, here's some questions to ask yourself. First and foremost, what is your security budget? If there is no security budget, you're going to have to get one. And it will be driven by your security needs. What are you hoping to achieve with this budget? What are your goals? Certainly, the amount of time you can afford to be down without data is a key question. How will these goals affect stakeholders? Key question. How is our security budget going to help these stakeholders? What stakeholder decisions do we have to make to grow our company with technology? And what is our company attitude toward an appetite for technology? The best company cultures will have buy-in across, but certainly your company may be somewhere between, and the kind of value you may be bringing with your IT decisions is to be able to articulate how you can grow your company with technology. Staying secure helps you grow, just like exercising keeps you healthy. So I was on LinkedIn this morning and saw that we at Total Computer Solutions, Ashley had shared a post on our LinkedIn that said 93% of companies that lose their data for a certain amount of time file for bankruptcy within a year. So if you think about not having the proper level of security, not establishing that line where you say, hey, we can only go an hour or 2 hours or whatever it is without our data. Not having that is a great risk. And those of you that maybe watched our cybersecurity panel last week may have seen some growing and increasingly alarming factors about cyber hacking. Those of you who are local to Greensboro, we just had a big college university have a cyber attack. So it's in the news, and we certainly need to think about security as a growth point for our business, because losing security can undercut our business in disastrous ways relatively quickly. So what is a winning strategy? Well, you win the security side of winning your IT internally by having a strategy that recognizes the prerequisite security budget that will allow the company to grow. That's first and foremost, that has a long-term plan that will aid future company growth and that is fluid. We're going to get into technology. You win the security of your company by balancing your IT budget with your long-term IT and business growth needs. Winning strategy number 2 there. Let's move on to our third challenge of the day, which is attempting to master this territory of keeping things simple while still maintaining the integrity of all of your technology choices out there. So we want you to keep it simple, but we don't want you to become simplistic. Simple would mean staying informed about tools and services, not becoming simplistic and sticking with outdated systems or trusting sources irresponsibly without policies and processes. So ways to keep things simple: review your IT strategy quarterly. Certainly review your IT strategy yearly. Maintain open discussions with your vendors. Use your vendors as resources. I mean, here we are today, we are a vendor and a partner to many companies in several industries. And this is the type of information that we want to be shared, because the more we can plan together, the more that we can help. The more we can be on the same side of the table as a partner, the more we can help. Use your partner for events, resources, webinars like this. You do not have to become an expert to maintain the integrity of your choices while still keeping it simple. I would highly recommend we have a yearly plan, at least for reviewing our IT. And this is a question that I ask many IT decision makers throughout my work week as a business consultant. I ask them when their yearly plan is for reviewing IT. Certainly, I want to bring up discussions about where they're going in the next 30 days, especially if they are having issues, but getting it to 60 days, 90 days, the next quarter to a year, having a yearly review plan is a key. Having stakeholders involved, committed, and engaged at an appropriate level is a key. Here's some things you might say to generate interest and buy-in for reviewing your IT each year. You can explain how great you are doing with cybersecurity. Many companies are in a state where they are growing their cybersecurity knowledge exponentially every business day, week, and quarter. I myself, as many of you are in my shoes, you can attest to this. You know a lot more about what to do and what not to do when it comes to your own workstation security, your own email, than you did, say, a year ago, for sure. So you might share how great you're doing and how everyone is a part of that cybersecurity improvement. You might share that you're scheduling a 20-minute briefing on our level of phishing exposure at the executive level. We all know that executive level can be attacked higher than across the company. You might share that you've scheduled a meeting with 4 vendors over the next quarter, that each meeting will be 45 minutes. People can be invited in to learn what's going on with vendors. And vendors really are going to be a point of knowledge for you, because they're going to bring a sense of helping when it comes particularly to cybersecurity. I heard someone say on our cybersecurity panel, it was Rudy from SonicWall, that even if you kick your vendors out, invite them back, because they're bringing that cutting edge knowledge, it's not your job to have. So in the world of IT and security in particular, vendors tend to be passionate about their products and services. And this is because there's currently really a shared sense of good among everyone. There really is a sense among us as IT partners that we're working together, not just to aid economic growth by making business easier, but that we're really all fighting against bad guys when it comes to cybersecurity. We know, for example, that the bad guys can get the exact same information that we have out there that's readily available. So there's a real kind of cybersecurity battle going on day to day here as part of our business and national culture. And we in the IT industry tend to come together across companies and across vendors to be passionate about that. As you get information from your vendors, perhaps this passionate information, make sure your IT security company and plan and strategy involves these IT professionals. You're not going to be able to do all of this yourself unless your job is IT. Where do you get all your information? You can get all information from partners, and you can find partners, and this is a key, who can make good stakeholders. So we challenge you in the beginning, those of you who are making these decisions about your own company's IT internally, those of you who want to bring a sense where we're really doing a good job with our IT outsourcing decisions. You can find an MSP who will actually make a partner, a good partner. There'll be a stakeholder in your company. I would say that that should be one of your key goals in bringing winning IT internally. So how do we win the challenge of mastering the balance between options and simplicity? It's by reviewing and planning. Reviewing and planning. Our final challenge to win internally with IT is to maintain and understand the evolution of technology in a changing world. Even those, and I've heard our very own founder and president share this, even those who really are on the forefront of technology have to embrace a changing world. You don't need to be a historian of this to have a proper context for the current state of technology. You kind of need to know, first of all, that it is always changing. You can't possibly become an expert on the fly unless you are particularly just an IT professional within your organization. You have to embrace the change. You're going to be a change agent within your own organization to successfully win with IT technology. You have to beware of those who would want to slow you down, therefore, with the details. You'd have to stay out of the weeds and commit to plain, effective communication with your stakeholders because things are changing so rapidly. The current state of IT, information technology. Well, we'll kind of sum up the history of the last 20 or 30 years or so just by putting capitalization on information technology itself. So if you look at our slide, IT being the study or use of systems for storing, retrieving, and sending information, we're reminded that information technology is all about the information and data that drives your bottom line. It is a business issue. It used to be lowercase information, uppercase technology. The emphasis was all on, okay, I need to go and get hardware to solve my problems. Then it became just information technology, both information and technology equal. But today, and you can remember this easily by seeing the screen that has information capitalized. Today, it's capitalized information, lowercase technology, emphasizing that the most valuable thing you have in your company is data and information, that even your hardware and services are not as important as your particular information. Figure out how to use that data and information to grow your bottom line is the important task for your technology. Your technology is there to support capital information. Your investment in technology, therefore, must capitalize on the value of your data and technology. Level of security is key. Just buying technology isn't enough to stay informed. They're divergent and different needs and motivations among your stakeholders. But the overall goal is to bring them together, and your information technology plan ultimately is about the bottom line goal for all in your company. So we have 4 challenges for you to win, 4 issues for you to that you have to take care of to win with IT internally. You have to win the accommodation of different stakeholder types and needs by recognizing and communicating. You've got to win the security of your company by balancing your IT budget with your long-term IT and business growth needs. You've got to win the challenge of mastering the balance between options and simplicity by reviewing and planning. You've got to win the challenge of understanding technology by communicating change and explaining your long-term ROI, especially 5 years plus, to your stakeholders. Just like the technology, it may seem confusing, but if we can keep it simple and win with these 4 challenges, you will be able to successfully bring your IT decisions into your own stakeholders, winning strategy that supports your bottom line. As we end by emphasizing this is a business issue, I'm going to turn it back over to Ashley in just a moment, but I want to make sure that I highlight something else. I'm sure you get it just from hearing the way that I'm talking about this business issue, that it is rather consultative. If you are interested in consulting along these lines and kind of working your way through to make sure you get a successful IT strategy internally, please contact us. You can contact us directly, certainly through some of the questions here today, but do reach out to us so we can have these kind of discussions that will be unique for your particular company. With that consultation in mind, let me move to our questions portion here, and I'm going to turn it back over to Ashley for that. So Ashley, back to you, please.
Perfect. Thanks, Matt. Now we'll take some time for questions. Just a reminder, please type those into the question box in your control panel, and we'll wait a minute or two to see if we have any questions. All right, Matt, looks like we do have a question. Do all companies of all sizes need a similar IT security plan?
That's a great question. Do all companies of all sizes need a similar plan? The answer is yes and no. It's yes because everyone needs a plan that goes long term. It's no because your security plan, remember, will depend upon the level of risk that is acceptable for your company. So yes, companies of all sizes do need a plan, and that plan will be driven by your own internal acceptance of a certain amount of security risk.
Good question. Next question here. It says, how do I get everyone on board with IT decisions?
Yeah, that is a really good social question there too. And I wish I had an easy answer for that, but you're really going to have to use these creative strategies that we brought out today. You have to recognize that there are so many different types of stakeholder behaviors and so many different really things that you have to do to accommodate others that you want to recognize and communicate. You want to draw attention to the fact that your IT really does have to do with your bottom line. As you want to try to keep things simple, all of the ways that we discussed to win. Certainly, communication, becoming comfortable with change, can go a long way to get everyone on board. I think the number one way, if I had to offer my number one recommendation for how to get everyone on board, it's to explain how beyond a doubt your own IT strategy helps with your own company bottom line.
Great answer. All right, it looks like we've covered all the questions. Matt, is there anything else you wanted to include before we go today?
Well, those were great questions. Thank you, everyone, of course. Thank you, Ashley, for putting this on, being such a great moderator, and really putting this all together. Thank you for everyone that attended. And let's just get out there and satisfy our team internally by putting some of these winning strategies in place.
Great, thanks, Matt. And if you have any questions, like mentioned before, please email those to info@tcsusa.com. Check out our website at www.tcsusa.com, or check us out on social media. Thank you for being here today. We'll see you guys next time.